what I saw was hordes of people standing in front of our beautiful synagogue and throwing stones through these magnificent colored windows. And as we arrived, of course, we ran past the place itself, the noise, the shouting, the screaming. I suppose there was an aura of eeriness about it, because we still didn't know what was happening, but I suppose just the mere fact that so many people were there and were screaming and shouting and throwing stones into the stained glass windows was enough to make us run. We arrived in school and were immediately told that our parents would pick us up. We should remain calm, but there would be no school that day. And indeed, a few minutes later, or half an hour later, whatever the case may be, my mother did arrive and took me to my grandmother's home, where my father already was. And here then unfolded slowly but surely the grim story of what happened during the night, that the synagogues all through Germany had been set on fire, destroyed. The Sifrei Torah were burnt in most cases. It is known that in Hamburg people sacrificed themselves to run into the synagogue to save some of the Sifrei Torah, hide them, and I believe were successful in doing so. That the Jewish stores in the center of Hamburg, in the downtown area of Hamburg, had been demolished. Windows had been broken. The merchandise had been thrown into the streets, covered with water and with ink. And I mean, it was a total chaos, a total destruction. It was a search for an asylum no matter where. And the possibilities were very, very slim. They thought of England. Well, England required quite a substantial amount of money as a security deposit for everyone that entered England. I'm not sure what the amount was, and I don't think that my parents could have afforded that. And neither, apparently, could the Meyer family, so that we had to find other ways out. My father, I believe, had, I know, had cousins in Argentina. It was very difficult to get into Argentina. You had to prove that you were somehow or other connected professionally to agriculture. And of course that he couldn't prove. He was a businessman through and through. So that was out. So somehow, and I'm not quite 100% sure how this Albania possibility surfaced, but what I had heard always was my mother had met the Albanian attaché to Germany at a bridge party. And during the conversation, it turned out that he was about to get married and wanted to go on his honeymoon to Switzerland. And my parents and the Meyer family lent him some money. He got us in return. Perhaps not in return. I don't want to make it sound that this was a bribery. I think that he really and honestly was able to officially give them visas to go to Albania. It took place in August of 1938, and that was a decree by the government that all Jews, male and female, had to adopt a Jewish name. And you had to add your middle name to your name, a middle name. All women became Sarah and all men became Israel. So that now my name became Johanna Jutta Sarah Gerechter, and my mother was Ali Sarah Gerechter, and my father was Siegbert Israel Gerechter. And it's interesting, only recently did I realize that even people like my own son and daughter-in-law never heard of this law that one can be forced to add a name to their existing name. And how come that people didn't become suspicious enough to just throw everything away and leave Germany? But they didn't. I think it was a legitimate question on the part of my daughter-in-law. But they didn't. My father had maintained that he had been a high officer during World War I. He has the Iron Cross. He had received in 1935 a cross from Hitler, which was given only to all front-line fighters, meaning people who for 4 years of the First World War spent on the front line. And how could the same men now deny him an existence or a livelihood or would throw him out? I mean, that was something that you could not really believe. We left with the 10 marks per person. We left with the little package that was packaged in Hamburg, and that's all we had with us. We arrived in Bologna the next day, and here we didn't know what we would be doing because the 10 marks by now had been used up the one night in Munich, and the Meyer family of 5 and the 3 Gerechtes stood on the platform in Bologna and really didn't know where to turn. To our great surprise, there were Italian students who were organized by the Jewish community of Italy. And apparently in many such centers of cities where trains would come from Germany, these students had made it their business to be there and receive German or other immigrants that were fleeing Germany. Well, I remember 2 students taking us in hand, taking us to a beautiful, beautiful hotel and caring for us for an entire week until we were able to receive money from our relatives in America, and the same went for the Meyer family. The money had to be dispatched, and I guess in those days telegram was already in existence, of course, but I don't know how quickly it went. But we were, for an entire week, taken care of by these students in Bologna, who also took us around town, showed us Bologna, fed us, took us to restaurants, and just took care of us until we were able to pay for our passage, first of all for our ticket, railroad ticket from Bologna to Bari. In Bari, we took a boat to Albania.